Good day, possibility seekers. It's me again, and I'm back, and I've got a really special guest with me today. I want to tell you about my guest, Teresa Carotenuto-Giella, who is a healthcare strategy consultant by day and a fitness instructor by night. She shares her passion for sports and fitness from a young age and the work ethic instilled in her by her parents. Teresa discusses the dilemmas and pressures that working millennials feel while also highlighting the importance of staying true to yourself and your core values. She's going to reflect on her experiences as a Division One student athlete, the hurdles she had to overcome, and the lessons she learned that got her to where she is today. Teresa encourages listeners of all age to shoot for the moon, work hard, and follow their passion, but to always have fun in the process. Hello, Teresa.
Hi, how are you, Monique?
I'm good. I feel like I'm talking to a younger version of myself.
I know. Every time I talk to you, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I hope I'm gonna be Monique when I'm a little bit older.
So funny. My husband said that too. He's like, "Do you see that, right?" And I'll go, "Yeah, I do. I see it." Anyway, it's awesome to see you. I wanted to kick off today because I have to be honest, I am so grateful to have a younger version of my guests because what happens is I think we forget. We forget what it was like to be in our 20s and 30s, and sometimes, we speak as though you're supposed to come out of the womb with some of this information, and the reality is you only will learn it through experience, and I am so interested to hear your experiences. I want you to tell the audience a little bit about you, what you do, your background, what you do for fun, all of that good stuff so they are grounded in who you are.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's see. Oh gosh. I feel like my first line is always like, I feel like I'm always moving. I'm never sitting still, but that's for me, that's what I like. So that's what I'm always doing. But yeah, so I'm Teresa. I currently live in New Jersey. Hopefully soon moving to Pennsylvania, but I am from PA, so from this kind of East Coast area. But I currently work as a healthcare strategy consultant. So that's a lot of fun. My background is more in kind of that healthcare, biology, public health. That's what my undergrad is. I went to Lehigh University, and I also stayed there. I got my master's in industrial systems engineering, but it was a healthcare focus. So my background is really that kind of sciency, like public health, and then engineering principles, and lots of math, also statistics. That was a lot for me, but that's kind of where I am educationally. But in my day to day, it's so much fun. Consulting is so much fun. You get to work with so many different people, and you're really the core of it is you're helping clients or other people solve big problems by kind of breaking it down and really looking at the tactical pieces of how to solve things. So that's my kind of first part of then I also do a couple other things, but I am a fitness instructor, so I teach cycling, I teach strength, I teach dance. I'm hoping to teach bar soon or maybe Pilates.
I love bar. I love all of it, but I love bar.
Bar is like so much fun. So I'm like, I have to teach that, aspiring to maybe get my personal training license. So all that type of fitness stuff. So I do a lot of that. And that normally is either like before work or I guess they call it your 5 to 9. And then I guess now my other 5 to 9 behind work is also fitness. So but yeah, I love it so much. It's such a good way to kind of stay active, stay moving, and also help people, help other people. So I really enjoy that. And then when I can, well, pretty much every weekend or, some weeknights, I do coach and officiate field hockey. So I coach anywhere. I coach for a club team, but I coach anywhere from little under 10s all the way up to high school seniors. And that is so much fun. It's so rewarding just seeing them each year kind of grow and then move on and then, go to college and play or just, the whole environment. It's so much fun.
And these are girls, right, Teresa? These are girls.
Yes, all girls. Boys can play field hockey, but there's some rules around high school and college. You'll really only see girls, but overseas, it's the men play. It's huge. But in the United States, it's mainly girls. But yeah, and then I officiate. So I ref for field hockey, and again, I anywhere from little girls that are like second, third grade, all the way up to I officiate at the collegiate level. So I'm very busy. I feel like I'm in my car a lot.
Well, you were a D1 athlete, right, yourself in field hockey, right? So tell us about that.
Yes, yes, I was. I was a Division 1 student athlete at Lehigh University. And that is, I have nothing but positive things to say. It's such a great experience. I always encourage our athletes, the young girls, if you can play, I always say you don't have to because it really is a big time commitment and you really have to think about it. But I'm like, if you can and you're able, you should definitely try to play collegiate sports. I think it just teaches you so many things, especially in that age range of 20, young 20s. You're really learning a lot. So I think it's really nice to have that kind of team. But yes, I was a student athlete and I loved every second of it.
What do you think that taught you about life and business, your athletic career? What do you think?
I think even starting from a young age, I feel like I can't remember a time that I didn't play sports. I was probably, 3 and already playing soccer and field hockey, swimming, dance, gymnastics, like tennis, everything. Our parents were like, just do everything because, at towards the end, it'll start to kind of prioritize and get down to what you really want to do. But at the beginning, I can remember literally every single night of the week doing something different. And I think that really at a young age teaches you one a lot of discipline because you have to be there, you have to show up. It teaches you to be timely. If you're on time, you're late, so be 15 minutes early and then you're on time. So that's definitely a thing that it teaches you. I think it obviously teaches you hard work and how to have a good strong work ethic. I know my parents were really big on, if we started something, my sister and I, we weren't to quit. We weren't to give up. So, example, we tried gymnastics and there's a really big gymnastics center in Pennsylvania that a lot of Olympians train at. And so we went there as little girls. And I remember going to my mom and dad and being like, I'm never doing this again. Like, this is terrible. I can't do it. Like, I'm not doing it at a young age. And, I'm sure they had paid for X amount of sessions or some type of something. And they kinda, had that tough talk of like, "You know what? You might not like it, but we're gonna finish it out because we started it, we're gonna see it through, and at the end of it, if you wanna look back and say, 'I'm never doing that again,' then that's fine. That's totally okay. But we're gonna finish it through." So, I think again, that kind of principle has stemmed all the way up through college athletics and through the rest of your life, and a lot of these principles, I think, really do apply to business and work because you've gotta have the discipline, you've gotta show up on time. You have to have the work ethic or else, things happen. You have to be timely, you have to be prepared. All of this I think really just lends right into business and work.
Absolutely. So, this is where you think you learned intentionality and being organized and time management?
Yes, I think sports are exactly where that came from. Again, I know I touched on the time, but you have to be able to be there, be on time, be prepared, be intentional with your time. You can't there's really not a lot of time to waste. And I would say that's even more highlighted when you get to the collegiate level, whatever division you're at. When you get to that collegiate level, it becomes you really have to focus and be intentional with your time because, you could have practice at 5 a.m. and you could have class starting at 8 o'clock. So you've got to get from your 2 hour practice, showered, eat something, get to class, be on time, get to your next class, do your assignments, do this, go back to practice at night. So it's like there's so much going on that it's just you have to really, really be good at time management or else it's very easy to crumble, honestly, and it's sad because you see people that do go through that and then they end up, either quitting the sport or dropping out of school because it's just too much, so, luckily, there's a lot of resources for college athletes, which is great, but you really, really have to focus on all those things, be intentional, be really good at time management, have the discipline, but also on the other side, you have to also take time for yourself. So if you're not doing that, everything else around you is going to crumble. So you have to really, it's hard because it's like this balance of trying to make everybody else and everything around you succeed. And then also your personal, like within yourself, you also have to be complete.
Yeah, so imagine that. You have to put your oxygen mask on first?
Yes. So exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, what are the tools and tricks that you use today as a professional now that you've gotten your master's degree? I think you were working while you were getting your master's. So that had to be not an easy thing either. I did that too, and it wasn't easy. Would you tell somebody who's listening who's trying to juggle a bunch of different things? what would you tell them are some I know you've read some of my book, but, there's some crossover themes. What are your hacks that you use for time management and trying to get all of this into one day?
So for me, I feel like I'm a very visual learner. So personally, what I do is everything has to be written down. If it's not on paper, then it's probably not going to happen. But so I write every single thing down, whether it be, you know, um, my goals that I have for the week or my goals that I have for the month, the year, whatever. Everything is down on paper. I have like a million notebooks, try to color code them, try to keep them organized, but I have a ton of notebooks, so I write all that down. That's kind of more broad. But when it comes to the day to day and how to tackle all that from day to day, I will actually sit down and write out 3 different calendars, and on each calendar, I have X from this hour to this hour in the morning, then I have these meetings, boom, 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 write those all down. Then I have this after work, and then maybe on my other calendar, that's more task related, so I need to call this person, I need to email this person, I need to things more of that nature, and that can be work or that can be personal, but for me, that's how it works. I physically really need to see on paper, like, okay, this is this. And I'm very big on when it's done, cross it off.
Don't you get, like, an endorphin rush when you cross something off? It's like, "Yes."
That and highlighting. I'm like, oh, highlight that, star that. I know it's so bad. But yes, for me, that's how I handle it. That's how I've been able to kind of not master because I can definitely still improve, but get really good at time management. It's being able to, I almost say like compartmentalize, like break it down, like piece by piece is kind of how I do it. And it's actually really the most helpful, I think, when there's a million things and all of a sudden you feel like, wow, like there's just this wave of I don't even know where to start. That's advice too that even my little sister, if she calls me, she says, "Oh my God, like I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this." And I just like, I'm so overwhelmed. I always say to her, take a deep breath and just write down literally piece by piece. Break it down piece by piece and then just start at the first block, then at the second block. And the more you do that, I think it almost gives you a sense of comfort. Like it gives you not a sense of control, but almost a sense of control over all of the external factors going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I always say you can't eat an elephant in one bite, and that's not something I made up, but I think if you break down the bigger goal has to be chunked out because it's not gonna be done in one place at one time with one person. It's gonna require steps and so on and so forth, and that's some of the things I was trying to, convey in my retreat this past weeks ago that we had BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals, and then we had what are the steps that you're gonna need to take in order to make those goals happen? Who do you need to engage? Who do you need to the detractors, who do you need to keep at bay? What are the breakdown, tactics that you need to deploy? What are the behaviors that you need to adopt and all that kind of stuff? For such a young person, and I'm not gonna, pull the age card here at all, but and I hate the word but because it negates everything you said before. So, and I have tremendous respect for how much you know at such a young age. I think it's impressive. I want to call out the difference in attitude that you have relative to a lot of your peer group, right? So, I think that, today I wanted to juxtapose and to converge FOMO, social media culture, and its impact on young women and how you have experienced it, seen it, and choose to absorb it or not absorb it. So I leave you with that question to answer.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I think for people that are in their 20s, I think there was such an almost explosion of the whole social media and kind of FOMO culture because I feel like when I was maybe 12, 13, middle school, high school, I feel like this didn't I don't know, maybe I'm oblivious, but I feel like it didn't really exist or it wasn't as prevalent. But all of a sudden I feel like I got to college and it just really took off. And I think the main problem is that you have now all these influencers or, people that really live their life on social media, which again, to each their own, like that's uh, power to them. That's great. But what happens is I think people are so consumed with posting what looks perfect to everyone else, and that's kinda what they're getting paid to do by these companies or whoever's, sponsoring them. They're getting paid to post that perfect picture or story, and everyone else around them sees that, and I think automatically you kind of almost have a sense of like, well, I mean, that's not what I'm going through. So that's kind of, am I supposed to look like that? Is that supposed to happen? Like there becomes this kind of sense of question almost, I think, in younger people. And it's very easy to get lost or to try to be something that you're not. And that feeds into, I think, that kind of FOMO culture. So then all of a sudden you see other people or maybe friends or someone doing this or doing that, posting about things that look in your eyes look perfect. And then you feel that sense of missing out and that sense of, well, why can't I do that? Or why can't I have this or have that? And it becomes almost like an internal struggle. So I think there's so many problems with it, but for me, I think I have definitely seen it, obviously acknowledged, what's going on. But in my head, I'm like, you just need to worry about yourself. Like, and that's hard because if you didn't learn that at a young age, that's hard, I think, to learn as an adult. So for me, I was told as a young child, worry about yourself, kind of stay in your lane, do what you need to do. Do what's good for Teresa. Don't worry about everybody else. Do what you need to do and other things will fall into place. And I'm very fortunate that I had, a younger sister and two amazing parents that were very supportive, and were always like, "Just go with you." What's good for you isn't good for your sister. What's good for her may not be good for you, but just focus on yourself and everything else will fall into place. And I think that that is something that's missed by a lot of people because they're so concerned with what is happening outside, and all that other stuff outside now looks perfect, which makes it even worse.
Yeah, my girlfriend calls it when she's a doctor, she has 5 kids, so I think she's got some sense of what's going on. She calls it compare and despair culture. And here's my question, though. So while we're on this topic, people know inherently that what they're looking at is fabricated, and oftentimes, like, I had a my niece once said to me, she's like, "Oh, that picture's bullshit. The day they took that perfect picture, this one broke up with her boyfriend, this one's father died, this," and it was a complete shit show in the background, and, here was the perfect picture on the perfect beach and the whatever, the matching suits or whatever it was. So if you already know this and it's already well known that what is being seen is not reality, why is it still affecting people in their lives, in your opinion?
I think that even though people know maybe things aren't always what they seem and things can be really superficial online, I still think that to people that, maybe aren't as secure or are really chasing that, I need this, I need this to look perfect to X, to someone, to something. That internal struggle, I think, is where people still struggle with that. Even if they know, like, oh, everything else is crumbling, I think them just seeing it is almost like a trigger to themselves internally because again, they maybe didn't have that upbringing. They didn't learn those lessons. I attribute athletics. Again, I'm gonna go back to that. I'm not saying everybody who didn't play sports is, struggling with it. That's not what I'm saying at all. But having that athletic background, you kind of learn to have thick skin and to just worry about yourself. Be secure, worry about yourself. And if everyone else around you is that way, it makes a great team. So I think that the people that maybe, don't have that internal drive or they're just, going back and forth, there's something going on to them, even if they know there's a fire going on behind that picture, it doesn't matter. It's still there. It's still going to trigger something in them that now they feel they're lesser or, something like that.
Yes, it's not enough of something. It's pretty enough, thin enough, rich enough, whatever the enoughs are, you come with your lack of your place of scarcity versus abundance, and I hate that because it sounds so cliche, but it's kinda true. So what do you think the impact to your generation is? Because, there is one
I know. I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to like look into a crystal ball and see what's really going to happen, but
right now. What do you see happening right now?
right now I think that people are going about their daily lives, trying to go from work to this to balancing all these things. But I think that there's people that are maybe even throwing on extra tasks or extra things they feel they need to do to be a part of this culture. So maybe that means, well, I can't do this because I have to buy like this outfit because I have to look right. Or like I have to look like this person. So I need to go buy that outfit. When, maybe that money could go somewhere else, somewhere that might help you 10 years down the line, not today.
Oh my god. Alright, so literally, you're channeling me right now because no, I said so this is so funny. I spoke at Fordham, the Women's Summit. It was 2.5 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, and I said that. I said, "You know what? Women need to take control of their money and make smart money decisions, and we need to stop allowing the marketplace or social media to dictate what we must have. You don't need 3 Louis Vuitton pocketbooks, but you do need money in your 401k. You don't need a Chanel outfit at 25, but you do need money so that you can tell your boss someday if they're not acting with integrity to go stuff it. You need to have financial literacy and make smart business decisions because as I say in my book, micro decisions today make macro outcomes tomorrow. You make bad decisions in your 20s, you're gonna be living with them in your 60s.
1,000%. That is so true. And it's like that. I feel like everything, with everything. Yeah. And it's so obvious too. It's like a glaring bright light. You see it and you're like, "Why are they like, why?" You know what I mean? Like, I guess if you have it and you want to, great, like, perfect, go ahead, but for majority of people, it's like, "Why?" There's no need. Like, again, I think it's that you need to be secure with yourself and you need to be able to be on your own 2 feet and be like, "I got this. No matter what, I got myself and I'm gonna get through this. I can do it." It's when you're all of a sudden looking for all that external validation that it's like, "What? No." That's where I think things start to fall apart and then it just is downhill fast. So you've gotta just I say stay on course. Just stay keep the course, stay in your lane, focus on yourself.
That's it. The eighth wonder of the world, Teresa, is compounding interest.
That's right.
Seriously. If you make the little decision to stay in your lane, da da da, in 10 years, you're like very self-actualized, confident, loving human. If you make bad decisions in your 20s, you're gonna exacerbate them in your 30s and 40s. By the time your 50s and 60s, it's looking pretty glim. I have a bunch of women friends in my age bracket that can't retire till they're like 90 because they made bad business decisions. They made bad spending decisions. They made bad life decisions. Like did you really need that beach house? Did you really need that beach house right then and there? You couldn't like rent every year? So now you have no money. Okay.
Right. Again, just to make other people think that everything's okay and everything's fine when in reality, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. So, what advice would you give young women who are struggling with this, like self doubt, self esteem issues, this idea that they're not enough?
So I think I feel like I'm gonna relate this to when I teach cycling or spin class. One of the things that there's always like a motivational song at the end where you're like trying to, ooh, this and that, and you're trying to like make it very dramatic. But sometimes it's fun. Some people are like take it or leave it. But anyway, that's outside the point. I digress. But one thing that I feel like I come back and say a lot is, you know, you're here in a room of 40 people working out, spinning. Don't worry about anybody else. Don't worry about who's sitting next to you. I'm like, you're here. The numbers on your monitor. I want you to just worry about you. I don't and in that setting, it's almost even harder, I feel like, because you're in it. You're within 6 inches of somebody else. And it's almost like this team, almost competitive environment. But I always say, don't worry about everybody else in this room. All that matters today when you walk out that door is what is on your screen and how you feel leaving the room. Don't worry about anybody else. And I think I would transfer that into people that are, my age or a little younger, a little older, I would say the same thing. If you're struggling with those kind of self-esteem issues, or you're really having that kind of FOMO where you feel like, "Oh god, I really, really need to buy that, or I really should do this, or I should go here because everyone else is doing it." I would say the same thing. I would say, "You know what? Just do right now what's best for you. Always pick yourself. What is going to help you the most, that when you go to bed and you wake up the next day, you are content and you're happy with yourself. That's all that matters. Everybody else around you, they're gonna do the same thing or they're not, but it really honestly doesn't matter. It's what you do. You have to be happy, confident, positive, all within yourself. So, and I know that's almost like preaching to the choir, because you can say that a million times and someone can say, "Oh, well, I try and I just can't do it." Like, you know what I mean? But in that case, honestly, I would tell someone you should join a women's group. Join a, talk to somebody that you feel is, I think that person is maybe a little bit smarter than I am, or that person is a little bit faster than I, whatever it is, whatever it is. Talk to them, befriend them. If you're not able to do it within yourself, befriend them and work together. I mean, teamwork makes the dream work. It's true. I grew up on that, and girls around me not always were the most, had the highest self-esteem, or, there was always that happening. But it was I think the individuals who were willing to say, I can't do this by myself. I'm going to ask for help from a friend.
Asking for help is hard for a lot of women.
Yes, it really is. But I think if you can't do that, you can't find that kind of internal, whatever it is, drive, discipline, self-esteem, it's okay to ask for help and to find somebody maybe who can do that for you. And then you never know. All of a sudden it turns into this kind of positive experience, and you can radiate this all by yourself and you don't even need anybody else.
Awesome. That's great advice. I think personally, I think a lot of times the stress comes when the person doesn't know what they want. So when you don't know what you want, you're putting out very wishy-washy signals to the universe, and you're going to get wishy-washy results because you're not clear about what you want. If you believe in God, if you believe in the universe, I believe in both. You're not going to get or not going to attract what you want if you don't know what you want. So you have to kind of decide is the choice. What is it that I do want, or at least start with what I is that I don't want.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So what's the best career advice you've ever been given? Or best life advice if you want to go there?
Well, I feel like this applies to both, but I feel like the best advice I've been given is very simple, but work smarter, not harder. And I think that that kind of serves where I am, because I work in strategy, I work in efficiency and operations. So, you know, again, you kind of have to work smarter, not harder, because you are trying to stay, it's called lean. You want to keep everything as slim as you can and really take away anything excess. But I think that applies to a lot of things. The smarter you work and you think about it, maybe it requires you to take 2 steps back to evaluate. I think then the forward projection becomes so much easier. So I think the more you can think about it and work smart, you're not going to have to work as hard. I'm not saying not to work hard, because again, that's all I know how to do. But
Yeah, I get that.
the smarter you can be and the more you can optimize your time, I think the better it gets.
Love that. God, I wish I had said that. And, what's the worst career or life advice you've ever heard?
Oh gosh, I feel like I've seen this in so many places, but I don't know if anyone has ever said this to me, but I have heard of a lot of other people in these shoes. So I've heard people say, "Well, this person told me that I'm not experienced enough to even like apply for that. I don't know why I would even I can't do that." I'm like, "What?" So I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you mean you're not experienced?" So, and I think there is a statistic, and I'm not going to quote it because I don't know for fact. Okay, but it's something about, if, you're going to apply for a job, men, if they let's talk about the qualifications. If they see that they don't meet like 50% or 60% of the qualifications, they still apply for it anyway. There's not that fear. Women, I think it's like what, 10, 20%?
No, if they don't meet 80 to 90% of the qualifications, they don't apply.
Great. They don't apply, which is insane. So I think that has been if I haven't personally, I don't think I've heard it, but I have heard of other people my age that are in, within my circle say, "Well, I don't, that so and so said not to maybe next year I should apply for it because I don't have the experience." I think that's the worst advice I've ever heard because it really shouldn't matter. Now, I'm not saying if it's a doctorate level role, we're coming in here like, I just got my bachelor's degree. Maybe we don't do that. Maybe we don't. But but I think it's worth it. I always say, what is there to lose?
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly, and I relate this back again to fitness and athletics constantly in my class. There's parts that are more challenging than others, and I say to people in class, I'm like, "What do you have to lose today? You're in this room. No one here cares really what you're doing. What do you have to lose? Just go for it." If I always say, if you fail, you fail. Who cares? Turn down the resistance and you can go back. But I'm like, who cares? So I think it's the same thing when it comes to professional and even, professional lens or a life lens. Sometimes it's you have to risk, you have to go for it because if you don't, what is it? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like if you don't go for it, how are you ever going to know? You don't.
That's right. So the statistic is that men will go for jobs if they have 50% of what the job descriptions are, and men will ask for 30% more in a raise discussion and will ask for raises twice as many times. So the statistics are not good as it relates to how women approach their worth and their value, which makes me sad, which is why I actually think I will have a career as a coach in my next life, my next incarnation. My next incarnation, no, but I mean, it's like, I'm trying to get young women of your age and up to mine, understanding that they have choice and agency in how they show up, what choices they make, what jobs they take, what career paths they want to create. All of the things that people think are outside themselves are really inside, and they haven't optimized that. They haven't figured out that there is control and agency and planning and work to be done to get down a path. The question is, do you know what path you wanna go down? And if you don't know, to your point, seek out advice, seek out assistance, and formulate a path that works for you. So, my last question is, I love this question, and for you, it's a little bit different because I gotta push you forward to push you backwards. So, imagine that you're 50,
Okay.
and then you're telling your 27-year-old self some advice. What does that look like?
Oh gosh. I feel like I have I feel like I have a couple. I think I would probably say to myself looking back, work hard, play hard. And I feel like that was a big I told you I went to Lehigh and everyone when you get there, your first, week of orientation, they're always like, Lehigh is a work hard, play hard school. Like, and you're like, all right, I don't know what's happening here, but okay. But I do think that looking back on now from, a projected amount of years, I would tell that to myself. And I would say work hard, play hard, but it's gotta be 110%. So, if obviously, I like to work hard. I like to constantly be moving and be busy and doing things and helping others. That's fine. That's great. Do it 110%, which, you know, I try to live that out every day, but looking back, I would say the same exact thing. But also, I think it's really important the kind of play hard aspect. You also need to give that 110%. So as much as you're on and you're go, like you give it your all, when you're off, you've got to do the same thing. It can't be 110% on and I'm only going to give 50% when I'm off. That's not how I live. And I would want to tell myself, don't do that. So that's one thing. And then I was talking with Nick the other day, my husband, and he said this quote about be a seven be a seven-figure person, not a seven-figure earner. And that didn't come from him. That came from somebody else. But it really kind of struck a chord. And I was like, what does that mean? I was like, what is he talking about? But the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, so be who you want to be who you aspire to be, and everything else will kind of fall into place, like you said, be secure, give out what you want to receive, and it will all come back. It'll all be full circle. So that was another thing that when he said that, I was like, huh, that's a really good point. And so I was like, I should definitely talk about that with Monique because I love that. I love that idea.
It's sort of yeah, that's a great one. Thank you for that. We talk about having the work ethic versus the wealth ethic. So it's kind of the similar thought process in the sense that you don't need to be worried about you shouldn't be driving toward a number of a revenue number or an earning number because that doesn't say who you are. If you start with who you are, you will get the money will follow because you'll be grounded and be doing good while you're making money. And that doing well by doing good is something that I think is totally possible. So yes, so tell Nick he's very wise also beyond his years. And I applaud and support his thought processes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are awesome. Awesome, awesome couple. What else is there anything else you wanna leave people with? Because as we're coming to the end of our time, I figured you'd just get another shot at a little nugget if you wanna give them a Parisi nugget.
Yeah, I think I would say to people, as much as we can talk about being, secure, be who you are, be intentional. I also think at the end of the day, you also just have to be happy. Like, you have to put things into perspective. And I always hear like, oh, life is short. You have to, blah 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 blah. Blah. You got to make it count. And it's actually so true because when you lose somebody or something happens in your life that's a big event that hasn't really happened before, I think it puts it all into perspective and you're really like, wow, like this it's short it's here and it's gone. So you have to really as much as you have to stay focused, you have to work hard, play hard, do all those things. I think it's also really important to keep everything in perspective. At the end of the day, you have to be able to go to sleep and be okay, be happy. Like life is short and you just have to be happy with yourself, I think. And again, everything else will come fall into pieces. So yeah, yeah. My nonna would always say, she's like life is like it feels like it was like I looked out the window, it just like flashed by. So stuff like that. You just have to keep it all in perspective. But yeah.
Known as a wise woman. Thank you so much. Possibility seekers, I hope you found this valuable. This is from the mouth of a 27-year-old, very, very, very wise person. And I just want to say thank you to Teresa and thank you guys for listening. Make it a great day and remember what she said. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Possibilities with Monique DeMeo, where we unpack life as a female mover and shaker. If you like the show, please consider liking it or better still, subscribing to it and leaving us a rating. It truly does help. Also, you can pick up my book, The 7 Secrets to Creating a Life You Love, a practical guide for women in leadership. You can find the book, other episodes of this podcast, and how to stay in touch at moniquedemeo.com. DEMAIO. I look forward to seeing you again soon. With gratitude, Monique.